And I'd also like to mention before we have everybody introduce themselves, just acknowledge the very invested partners that we have in the room today. Bell Bank is not here, but we do have Lumpke Home Improvements and Radiant Homes. This is the highest sponsorship that allows the HBA to put on events like this today for our members. So thank you to our very invested partners for their unending support. With that, what I would like to do is go around the room, and why don't we start over here? And if you would share your company, your name, your company, and how you're involved with the HBA.
I'm Sam McDonald with Cass Clay Community Land Trust. I am semi-formally on the policy committee. I tag along because I like to, with Cass Clay Community Land Trust.
Trent Garrett for the Cass Clay Community Land Trust and Public Issues Committee.
Public issues.
Well, you're really a
That's what
semi,
I'm on,
yeah, you're
yeah.
a semi, the members.
Oh, thank you.
I'm Elizabeth Kozel and I'm with the HBA. I'm the Public Affairs and Education Coordinator here.
Awesome, thank you.
I'm Mike Lemke. I'm the treasurer, I guess.
Yes.
Moorhead resident.
Yeah.
Shelly's neighbor.
There you go. Tom Spade with Accent Kitchen and Bath, also a Moorhead resident for the last 25 years. And I've been a lot of things at GHB, from president to community leaders, and on the state board for being president 2 years. So busy with HBA all the time.
Wonderful, appreciate that. Great.
I'm Dave Reed with Radiant Homes, and I also do president of the HBA this year.
Toby Christensen with Cameron Happy Construction, a resident and more business owner. A number of things at HBA over many years.
Simon Bartholomew. I've done everything from ironwork to professional gathering. I'm currently in the Twin Peaks.
All right, thank you. Well, thank you for coming today as well. And yeah, I was just turning my phone down, reminder, because that can be costly if it goes off. Okay, so with that, we'll go ahead and get started. And again, this is a 2-minute introduction. And then at that last 30 seconds, you'll hear the first bell ring and then the final on this, when your time is up. Shelly, would you like to go first? Sure. Start us out?
Yep.
Go ahead. I'll get this first.
So, well, first of all, thank you for having us here today. I have come to the HBA a couple times over the last 4 years. And I always leave learning new things. So thank you again for the invite. And thank you to Mike, Tom, and Toby for living in Moorhead. We have a lot of options for those of you who don't live in Moorhead. It's a great community, so please come across the river and we can show you. My name is Shelly Carlson. I'm originally from North Dakota. I came down here in 1990 to go to school at Moorhead State, which it was when I went. Had both my bachelor's degree and my master's degree from Moorhead State, so I'm a two-time dragon. Bachelor's in legal assistance, master's in public educator, public administration. The last 30 years, I've been spent doing advocacy work for domestic violence, sexual assault, nonprofit organizations such as the Rape and Abuse Crisis Center. I've also done direct service advocacy in county attorney's offices. So like I was the director of Clay County Victim Services and the Clay County Attorney's Office, handling cases of child sexual abuse, homicide, felony domestic violence, situations like that. The last 7 years, I've worked at the Minnesota Elder Justice Center because the last 10 years I've kind of been focusing on elder abuse issues. My primary roles are to develop curriculum and deliver the curriculum to law enforcement that are criminal.
That's just the 30-second mark.
Oh, okay. I'm like,
I know.
so, yep. So I focus on elder justice issues, providing training and working with multidisciplinary teams, and decided to run for council 4 years ago. then ultimately ended up mayor somehow. Unanimously appointed by my fellow council members on February 8th. Last year really focused, is also. So, a busy year last year.
Wonderful, thank you. Kevin?
Bonjour, Annie, if I may digress. NeSe de Jinikaz Anishinaabe Manawa, Kevin Richard Shores and Jinikaz Jaganashi Mug, Makwanan Dunde Minawa Nindo Gichida, Aki Minawa Gawababi Danikag and Dunji Bob, Nungum, Minawa, Moorhead, Minnesota, Chi Miigwech Kichimanadu, Gani Kana, Pekish, Minobiman, Ziwe Vidan. Hello and hi. My birth given name is Kevin Richard Shores, although I do prefer to be labeled NeSe in homage to my Anishinaabe heritage. I am an enrolled member of the White Earth Reservation. I am a 100% service-connected disabled veteran. In 1985, I joined the United States Navy, went to 32nd Street, was on board a guided missile cruiser, ended up in the Persian Gulf. While in the military, I received a numerous amount of inoculations. Some of them were not tested well and caused me and estimated 700,000 other veterans an illness called Gulf War illness. I've been an advocate for veterans for over 25 years, an advocate for the cannabis cultivation, and also for Paleo-American rights. I've had several different jobs after getting out of the military. Unfortunately, with a top secret clearance, they were more concerned about if I could just push a broom. I was a cosmetologist for 8 years. Then when I got disabled, I went back to education. In 1999, I moved up here to go to MSUM to get my degree in university studies, Native American studies, and go on to be teaching. I eventually was going to go to the reservation, but fell in love with Moorhead. This is my 4th time rolling. Which, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And so what would you be preferred to, what's appropriate, Kevin, or?
NeSe is
NeSe.
fine. It's Pavlov's dog. When the bell is ringing, I'll jump to Kevin also.
Okay, okay. Sounds good. Well, thank you, NeSe. All right. And I'll open up the floor too. If there's any questions right off the bat, feel free to, start out. Otherwise I will, if not. So I will start with NeSe this time. What initiative in the past have you worked on, that maybe wasn't as successful as you'd like? And do you feel that you'd still be able to see some success in it as mayor, if elected mayor?
In 2000, I got ran over by a garbage truck while exploring the feasibility to do a ride from Moorhead to St. Paul in my wheelchair. After I got a settlement from that, I put money aside to try to create a nonprofit, and it was called Cannabis Resolution. It was specifically about educating people about the cannabis plant and how there's over 100,000 byproducts that can be made from this incredible plant that has an auspicious possibility in its cultivation. So I want to bring forth again the feasibility of cultivating cannabis for its profitability of the community that it exists. What I'm wearing today, everything is made out of cannabis. If you look around you, everything can be replaced with the cannabis plant except metal and glass. Over 100,000 byproducts.
All right, thank you. Thank you. And again, 1 minute on replies and then a 30-second warning. Shelly, do you want me to repeat the question?
No, that's fine.
Okay,
That's fine. I think it wasn't necessarily an initiative that I started, but it was one that was in progress when I became elected as a city council member. And I think one of the things that I've learned the last 4 years is that there's so many disparities between building in North Dakota and building in Minnesota, that just breaking down some of the individual issues like the prospect depth issue, I think is something that we could be more successful as, kind of picking at each one of them individually versus trying to go forward with one bigger initiative. And I also think that if we get to a point where we can really level the playing field with building homes on the Moorhead side, that we will get a huge influx of individuals coming in. So that is one thing that I would be looking to focus on if elected mayor again, is finding out what those individual challenges are and lobbying.
Thank you.
Bryce,
Oh,
I
go ahead.
recommend that we add 30 seconds or a minute and take it out of the Q and A at the end.
Sure, you can do
If
that.
that's okay with the.
Okay. Everybody okay with that?
Yes.
Okay.
You're such a.
I think we'll have time.
Yeah.
Yes, no, that'd be, okay, our goal is to be complete by 12:45, just a heads up, okay. Okay, so thank you, Shelly. And so another question would be, and we'll start with Shelly this time. What is an issue in Moorhead that you think we'll be dealing with for from 10 years on, or in the next 10 years? And what can we, the HBA and the members, be doing now to help prepare for that?
I think one of the big issues that we're gonna be dealing with in the next 10 years is going to be the 11th Street underpass. As you all know, we've just completed a 21st Street underpass. And there were some challenges with having to utilize a special assessment district in order to pay for that underpass. That's not the intent, and we are seeking kind of the last piece of the puzzle with federal funding for the 11th Street underpass. But I do think that that is going to be a challenge, individuals living in Moorhead trying to navigate around construction yet again. But I do think in the long run, it will be helpful with economic development in our downtown, and then also ensuring that public safety is something that can be accessed by everybody within the community, which is first and foremost the reasons why we are doing the underpasses, so that law enforcement, fire, ambulance can get north and south whichever way they need to in Moorhead. It's truly been a safe life, so. Sure, that was 30 seconds.
We wanted to add a minute on, was that, I think that was that a minute?
That was a minute,
Oh, okay, so we're adding another minute.
another minute.
Yeah, sorry. Okay. It's a lot to wrap our heads around over here. Do you have anything else, Billy, you wanted to?
Yeah, so anyway, so yes, construction is always, that really fun season that we get to deal with in the northern part of the United States. So I think that that is a challenge. The other thing that I think the Home Builders Association can really assist with is trying to get the word out about the programs that we have in the city of Moorhead to assist individuals that are building newer homes or moving in and wanting to rehab some of our older home stock. I did a presentation to a real estate brokers, and they were not aware of some of the programs that we had that we currently have in Moorhead. And I think just being able to get that information out will help give individuals looking to relocate opportunities and these different options. I just don't think it's well advertised, and a lot of great programs that can be utilized.
Yeah, and we're truly thankful for the property tax exemption that exists for residential construction too.
Yep. And the interesting thing is, that's a 2-year tax rebate, and it's not capped with any home. So it doesn't matter the price point of the home, that anybody can utilize that. And that was not information that the real estate brokers even were aware of, and many of them have been in that career field for quite a long period of time. And then there's just so many programs. That's something I think that we will be dealing with for the next 10 years. So continuing to educate.
Okay, thank you. All right, and thanks, Elizabeth, for okay, Kevin, would you like me to repeat that question?
Yeah, because I got a little triggered when you mentioned the word property taxes in Moorhead.
Okay,
Some of you may know my recent dilemma of how the state sees my home because of a miscommunication of property tax exemption for 100% service connected.
sure. Well, the question is, thinking about the future, what is an
Oh, yeah.
what is an issue Moorhead is going to be dealing with for the next 10 years and from now and beyond, and how can we, the HBA, prepare to help?
Well, I think the biggest challenge that we're gonna foresee is where do we go as we grow with Moorhead, with the recent annex and also the expansion north and south. You know, how do we plan that for the best of the community as we get these growing pains? You know, because we kind of got caught, you know, within specific boundaries, i.e. the train tracks and the highway, you know, and the river. And then if you look at Dilworth, so in the expansion of Moorhead, how do we work with developers and the residents to have limited stress with the growing pains? Making sure that in advanced planning, we have different areas of development that will have proper sewerage and power and water lines. And making sure that all of those things are set up for the growth of Moorhead. Was that a minute or?
No, you have another minute, right? Okay. So you're gonna start bringing up 1.5 minutes.
Oh, yes.
Okay.
So,
Not what we practice, David. Sorry.
so that,
Apologize. Okay.
so then in this growth, and then also I agree with Shelly, where we have these programs that are utilized to entice people to come in and build here, but how do we also keep the incredible minds we have from our institutions of learning, MSUN and Concordia, you know, the highest paying employments in the area? How do we retain all of these young, fresh minds with the technological advancement that is happening, you know, daily? And if we do not get on board of that rushing river through technology and being able to have the wherewithal to know from our experiences of the past of how we can navigate, you know, this quick rush of technology and with all of the different processes of developing now, especially like with 3D printers, you know, and that you can do it on such a large, expansive scale for building.
All right. Thank you. We'll start with NeSe this time. Again, and you have 2 minutes, so apologies for changing directions here. What suggestions would you suggest for revitalizing Moorhead's downtown? NeSe, if you'd like to start with that one.
Well, with the either legalization or the decriminalization of cannabis, that utilizing the laws that are out there, especially the Panoia Act, being an activist for 30 years with the cannabis issue, that if alcohol is being utilized as it is today, I would much rather see somebody, well, I would rather people not abuse things at all and they have critical thinking upon what they utilize, especially if it's habit forming. But, you know, alcohol compared to cannabis, to me, I believe it's a no-brainer, having not drinking in over 30 years and a cannabis advocate. This, I believe, will rejuvenate the youth also with my own health maintenance and pain management it's caused me to have a little oomph in my role or my step, I guess. But, you know, and with all of the other offshoots that can be possible through the cultivation of cannabis and also bringing in more businesses that are focused on these young minds of the colleges. I remember when I first came up here in '99, there were things for college students and those freshly out of high school to do. And now there aren't these facilities or these enticements to keep people here.
Thank you. Mayor Carlson, what suggestions do you have for revitalizing Moorhead's downtown?
Well, this is actually one of the things that we're working on right now, which all of you have heard of, the free development plan that we have, or agreement that we have with Roars. Particularly revitalizing our Moorhead Center Mall and the footprint of that area, which will likely become a TIF district, once things kind of fall into place. When I was door knocking 4 years ago, that was probably the biggest issue that people brought up with me, is that downtown was just kind of this dead place and the mall was dead, and we needed to do something about that. And so it was really exciting when we were able to go into and enter into an agreement with Roars to revitalize that. Roars owns a little over 90% of they don't own all of it. They control a little over 90% of the mall ownership. As you probably are aware of, it's condo ownership. The city owns City Hall, the hallways, the bathrooms, and all of the parking around it. And then within the mall, they have, I think, 5 entities that they are still working out agreements with. So once that comes into play, there will be likely sections that are going to be sold off into different developers. Interesting enough, I've been told that each developer is interested in different areas. So it's not like they're all competing for one area. They're interested in different areas. And within that redevelopment footprint will be about 1,200 housing units, which will be a combination of rental and then condo associations. And that will just help to really, I think, revitalize it, because you have all of those individuals that live there that then also support the businesses that would be going there. And hopefully in November, we will get a yes vote in November for a new community center library, which is also going to be bringing more people in and also will be supporting the activity that is done. And I think development in downtown Moorhead.
Well, sounds exciting. All right, thank you. Mayor Carlson, we'll go back to you for the start of this one. Moorhead City Council members recently voted to raise property taxes roughly 3%. In the preliminary budget. What are your thoughts on this, and do you support it or not support it?
Yes, they just voted, I think, at last council meeting, to increase property taxes by 2.96%. Unlike North Dakota, Minnesota, in order to capture the increased revenue that's available, we do have to raise property taxes. And I'm an advocate for not having the craziness that we've seen when we look in the past, where it might be at one property tax that's maybe close to a 5% increase, and then the next year it's down to maybe 1%, and it's so variable. The majority of the funds that we will obtain in the city for through this property tax, the majority of it is going to be going to salary increases and compensation. And in order to keep people employed at the city, in order to continue to offer the types of services that we do, we have to have competitive wages. Inflation is a pain in the butt that everybody has to deal with, and we have to deal with it in the city too. So, increasing property taxes is, kind of one of those, again, just reality evils that we all deal with. I'm not a fan of the variable up and down. I'd rather have it to be a little bit more consistent. I think everybody can be careful and thoughtful when it comes down to creating a budget within your family to do it, if you are kind of anticipating what it might be on an annual basis.
All right, thank you. NeSe, how do you feel about the property tax increase?
Being on a fixed income with disabilities, I am not a fan of property taxes or taxes increasing at all. So in this challenge that is coming about, where specifically is the money going? Currently, I was a cannabis commissioner to the White Earth Reservation. And because of my sharing my grievance of where did the $9 million go for growing cannabis, I was pushed out of this position because as I was in this position, it was part of my duties to follow finances and where finances are being utilized. So this would be the same here with Moorhead. Where is the expenditure and is there a leaking ship? Are we leaking money somewhere unnecessary? You know, and I think we have to be very careful in the situation that's happening, especially with the COVID, that going forward too much with spending a lot of money, you know, with what just happened and everything shut down, we have to use a lot of discernment and a lot of caution moving forward. And how do we entice people to remain in Moorhead or come to Moorhead if they're seeing these increases of taxes? How is that an incentive of bringing someone into the city if they're all of a sudden going to be paying money before they even get there? Thank you.
Thank you. Mike, do you have a question?
I got plenty.
Okay.
I got a couple.
Okay,
Um,
one at a time.
one at a time,
Okay.
one at a time. On the 3% property tax, this is for Shelly. On the 3% or 2.96% property tax increase, would it be advantageous for the city of Moorhead to liquidate some of its property, since about 30% or more is non-property tax paying in the city, rather than to push it off to housing and commercial businesses and stuff like that? Would that be something that the city should look, well, I'm gonna tell you, they should look at it, but as a resident. But that was, I don't know if that's been brought up or not.
Yeah, we are always looking at economic development opportunities to sell land. There are certain parcels within the city that that maybe that have been brought before council that the council has decided not to pursue selling it off. So I think it depends on who it's being sold to. And if the council is comfortable selling it to that entity, I think that's probably the best that I can say about that, because they were in exec sessions. I do think that it's not overly advantageous for a city to be in the real estate business and owning a lot of land. But I do understand why we end up owning different parcels that can help spur some of the economic development. But to give you like an example, it's interesting how there are other entities that do want us to acquire land, and I don't know if they really understand the ramifications of the city owning it. So Enclave is doing the apartment complex where they took down the old Digs Inn. And there's a church behind there, and they're trying to figure out a way to do a kind of a shared garden orchard area. There's this odd parcel of land that if the church builds an orchard there to have more of a community garden, then it's on the land that Enclave owns, but insurance doesn't want people coming on it. So it's more of an insurance issue than anything. And one of the ideas that they proposed was that maybe the city should just take over this little piece of land. And I said, you know what, the city is just not really in the business of wanting to own these random little pieces of land within the city. There's no reason, like 20 years from now, what are we gonna do? How are we gonna sell that piece of land?
Right.
And so I think we just have to be a little bit more careful going forward in the future about the land that we acquire, and what's the intended reason for it. I don't know.
Close enough. It's, I think we're on the same page on that, so.
Okay, and then NeSe, would you like to respond to that
Oh,
question?
absolutely. If there is land, a seed can be planted and a seed can grow. With, as I stated, over 100,000 potential byproducts through the cultivation of cannabis. If there is land, a facility of growing cannabis for its full potential can be created. Some quite simply, some rather elaborate, depending on where you would like to go with it. I called it the Community Unity Project to, if there was a feasibility of creating a nonprofit organization in partnership with the city to where you as a resident in Moorhead could work for the nonprofit to offset your taxes, to offset your charges within the city. And so then if the cannabis cultivation, whichever is choose industrially or health maintenance, pain management, would bring in this extra income that is needed. And so we could utilize the income, the profit potential from cannabis cultivation to offset it being taken upon the residents in their tax.
All right,
Thank you.
did you have a second one?
No, I can wait.
Okay, okay. All right, when we're winding down here to the last, so just in case you wanna still ask. them.
I never catch Shelly when she's walking because I don't, I got to separate the business and the person and.
Oh, yeah. No one else.
That's why I always leave you alone. It's like, oh.
I got a question.
Go ahead.
You guys were talking about the, downtown development and getting that all squared away. The other thing I think about a lot is, the work you've done up in Johnson Park and things like that. And there's a large expanse of land and area that can be developed for outdoor activities and people to have fun at. Any thoughts or plans on that?
And then we should start with NeSe.
Yeah.
One first.
Well, I'm glad you brought up about the downtown, because that was the first question when I moved up here, I couldn't see. And that was my first question is, where is downtown? And that was part of the, the downtown revitalization that occurred and didn't occur and occurred and kind of occurred. And so it was that establishing where downtown is, the dream idea of the Moorhead Center Mall. I would find an incredible benefit for Moorhead for that to be a community health development business, to where we had holistic and naturopathic and stores of such nature for the wellness of the individual. And that adds to up there in Johnson Park, where we can utilize it for getting people and finding incentives to get people to go out and about and enjoy nature. As an Anishinaabe, nature is our relative, and as we talk about Moorhead, dare we forget, even though it was named after Bill Moorhead and Clay County, this land was of the Paleo-American, the Red River Valley. Named the Red River Valley because of the massacres that occurred between the Anishinaabe people, the Lakota, Dakota, Nakota people, that at one time the battling was so fierce that the rivers and the lakes were red with blood. And that's how it got the label Red River Valley. But to get people to go outside and appreciate the outdoors. Also, I'd love to see a Paleo-American museum or some kind of building like the Yom recognizes Paleo-Americans.
Very good. Shelly?
Yeah, so in Johnson Park, the city has, invested, in Johnson Park substantially, I would say in the last 5 to 7 years with the new shelter, with the food forest, putting in the trails and things like that. I think also it would be a great place to have, I don't know what you call it, a wellness program or facility, exercise facility, whatever. One of the or several of the conversations we've had is with other entities is what is the infrastructure and not necessarily meaning roads, sewer and that, but the people infrastructure that's around it to support it. I think that in the future, Johnson Park might be a place to host or be a address for something like that. But right now, I think more of our Southside Regional Park, which is city owns some land down there, and there might be better partnerships that would be suited to putting an entity in that area because it draws people and there's people that are living that there's much more walkability for people to go there. I think Johnson Park would be something in the future as our north side of Moorhead grows, which I'm anticipating that it will because of Amazon across the river over in Fargo, that there's a ton of people that are being employed there and looking at how we're going to expand the north side. Although right now it seems the majority of the growth is to the south side. So it's not like it's being ignored, but it's maybe not quite the right time presently. But hopefully in the future by putting different things in there that draw people.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we're down to our last question before closing comments. So we'll start with Shelly on this one. You hear it often that we're referred to as one community, even though we have many individual jurisdictions and surrounding areas. Fargo, Moorhead, Fargo, all that, but how would you characterize the relationships with the elected officials in all these sister communities, and where do you see improvements needed in those relationships and cooperation?
So I do think that because we are one community, we have had to partner on so many different things. The one that first and foremost comes to mind is our diversion project. That is an incredible feat of collaboration and cooperation between all of the entities across the Fargo, Moorhead, Cass Clay region, which I think astounds and just completely shocks and surprises other jurisdictions across the United States. So that's probably our biggest one, a biggest example, but then we have other ones like our SWAT team, our dispatch center, the mutual aid, that we have between law enforcement, crossing the river. There's just so many different collaborations, and those don't happen without the elected officials coming to the table and understanding what each other's deficits are and what each other's benefits are that we can all bring to the table, working together. Personally, I've been able to develop some really good relationships, particularly with the North Dakota officials from working on the diversion project so closely with them last year when I was the chair of the Fargo Moorhead diversion. Obviously there can always be challenges and we can always do things better, but I think we are all committed to striving to do things better. So we can never predict what issues might come up, such as last year with the Minnesota changing some statutory language actually that had been in place for 25 years. So we'd already figured it out, but then we had to refigure it out, and now we're back to mutual aid again. You can't always anticipate what those challenges might be, and it's building those relationships that are going to help one another when those challenges arise.
Thank you. NeSe?
Well, back before 1871 with the founding of Moorhead, there was a bunch of Paleo-Americans that said, don't build near the river, it floods every now and then. And nobody paid attention. And now we are changing or attempting to control Mother Nature. which as a Native American, just makes me chuckle. And so we have spent billions and billions of dollars with the diversion. And maybe possibly we need to step back and see a new assessment on what's happening because of all the money being spent. When I first rolled for mayor of Moorhead, we just had new improvements on the water treatment center. Unbeknownst to most people, that the standards of water in Fargo is delegated by Denver, Colorado, and the standards of Moorhead's water treatment is dictated by Chicago. And they have different rules and regulations of what to put in and take out of the water. And since Fargo is upriver from Moorhead's water treatment, we should probably be on the same page with Fargo, so we're not overexerting either side. And these are the other challenges where we need to scrutinize because of our close proximity of each other, the carryover that happens. Majority of all of the money that is brought into individuals in Moorhead is spent in Fargo. It was so chaotic at one point, they created one-way streets in Moorhead just so they can help people get in and out of Moorhead and go back quicker to Fargo. And so how do we develop more in Moorhead so we can retain that money that our residents have here in Moorhead and also work across the river?
Thank you. Okay, well, we will move on to closing comments. And we will begin with NeSe.
Shimi Gwitch, thank you very much. I appreciate the precious moments that you have allowed me to share with all of you. As a Anishinaabe Nini, I asked my daughter if it was okay for me to roll again for mayor. Originally, I was supposed to move to the White Earth Reservation and assist there. And my daughter made me promise that she would graduate from Moorhead Senior High as my other daughter did. And so I told her if I'm here, then I need to be an advocate as I try to be for the downtrodden, for those that don't have a voice, because I know in my situation, being disabled, being a Native American, we're not heard. And that's where one of my nicknames is the Megaphone Man, because it was a great $60 purchase. If you want somebody to hear what you say, buy a megaphone. And it's good because people don't realize individuals like myself being at the bottom of the barrel, sort of say, as a blind Native American, disabled veteran, crippled in a wheelchair. Now, if I was gay and a woman, I'd be at the absolute bottom. But I am where I am. And where I am is in Moorhead. And I fell in love with Moorhead. That's what pushed me to roll for mayor, because I want to find positivity or minimally neutralize the negativity. And I'm sorry, pity and forgive me for not doing enough for universe. And may I prove to the residents of Moorhead that I'm willing to do my very best and pledge to have the integrity and the compassion and remember those that have in the future of Moorhead.
All right, thank you very much. Shelly.
I guess in summary, to just kind of bring up the three priorities that I am running for mayor on, first and foremost is public safety. I do kind of look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and, the bottom is, food, water, shelter, which shelter is what you guys do. So I appreciate all that you do, and I hope that you continue to look at building in Moorhead. But public safety is one of those issues that I feel very strongly about, because our law enforcement has been so understaffed for many, many years, and it's a real challenge to find individuals to even apply. And I know workforce challenge is something that is you talk to anybody in any profession, there's workforce challenges. With law enforcement, it is unique, I think, in Minnesota versus North Dakota, because in Minnesota, you have to have a 2-year associate's degree. And then you also have to go to skills training and then pass the post test. Skills, the closest is Alexandria. So you hire somebody and then they have to go somewhere else for 2 weeks in order to get additional training to even be able to apply for the job. When we had the last opening for a law enforcement officer, there was one person who applied and that person wasn't qualified. Once they hire, then it's a year of training before then they're kind of let loose, which is a lot more challenges that are there to get hired to hire a law enforcement officer than I think other positions. And if people don't feel safe in your community, they're not going to want to move into your community. So that's part of the reason. The other two are infrastructure. I think expanding our infrastructure. We just got a $2 million grant from the state of Minnesota to expand the infrastructure in the Makara, which has been really helpful to look at having businesses look at locating or relocating to Moorhead. We're looking at expanding infrastructure for neighborhoods as well and being thoughtful of how we build them. The last one. Yeah, so public safety, infrastructure, and economic development, which I've already talked about the revitalization of our downtown. So been there for almost 2 years now, and I would just like to continue for another 4.
Thank you. Well, thank you to both of you for giving us your time today, and just for all that you already do for our community and region. Like I said, just running is a challenge, and we appreciate that commitment that you both made, and thank you, Mayor Folsom, for your service over this last year as well. Just a reminder, the HBA is a resource, and if you need anything, even up for the upcoming election, if you need data or numbers or whatever, let us know. We're happy to assist. We wish you all the best of luck, and we'll let you guys get back to your day.